welcome to Sex Education. So I'm so excited to have you all here, and I just wanted to start our first Sex Ed blog with a little introduction, what this place is about and why I want to do it. So first of all, I thought I would introduce me and my qualifications and why I am interested in sexual health and wellness. So I have a degree in exercise science and sport and recreation. I also have a postgrad in nutrition, and I have a study in certificate in natural studies as well. So naturopathic, homeopathic studies, that sort of thing. I've also done a lot of work around women's health, worked with schools, worked with building up communities, and just sort of really working at a community level where I can see that there's things that don't work so well in our communities, and to try and implement plans to make them better. So that's a real passion of mine, and most of you all that follow me on any of my other social media pages probably don't know why. I am a daughter and sister, and I'm a mother. So I grew up in a household with me, my mum, my sister, and my father. My father is part Samoan, and my mother is partly Danish, a bit of British, and a bit of Irish in there as well. So in a bit of a mixed blend of home. And my parents were brought up in very different homes. Mum coming from a predominantly Catholic upbringing, having quite a strict household, but a very loving one. My father has 10 brothers and sisters, and grew up in Auckland and Panmure, and lived in poverty and with a lot of abuse around him for most of his life. There is a 10-year gap between my mum and my dad, and so that really showed in our household with the way things were run. I grew up in Whangamata, and then we moved to Hamilton when I was around 10 years old. And this was the first time that I really noticed that I was different. In Whangamata, everyone kind of was different. Everyone had their own ideals on how life should be lived. Hamilton, it was pretty much everyone lived life relatively the same. I noticed that I had parents, one was white, one was black. I noticed we didn't have a lot of money, and I noticed that a lot of other households were happier than mine. And so I really believe that this was the beginning of where I first noticed mental illness. I'm a very anxious person, always have been. As a child, I was incredibly nervous around any new person and stuck to my mother as close as I could. This made me very shy and not able to stick up for myself. As I grew up, I have found myself in situations I couldn't control, I couldn't stick up for myself, and I was used and abused. I've been sexually abused more than one time throughout my life, and I truly believe that if I had more information, someone to turn to, or someone to advocate for me, I wouldn't have had this happen in my life. It's something I've struggled with and has really increased my mental illness. I suffer greatly from anxiety, social anxiety and depression, and it's because of the lack of trust that I have in humans. I'm have a lot of fear that I can be put into an unsafe situation really quickly. In the last 10 years, I've been working really hard on myself to build my confidence back up, my self-esteem back up, and to actually become a role model for girls and boys that struggle with having a voice or struggle with talking about their own health, sexual health, or someone that they may be concerned about. So that has really driven me to build this platform. And I hope to grow it enough that we become part of the school education system, and that this is a real safe space for youth, and a place that anyone can feel welcome. I have a family of predominantly women. There's a lot of women in our family. I don't know how it's ended up that way, but there's a lot of us. We don't, especially on my mum's side, we don't have a lot of males left. We don't have a lot of family members left in general. We're quite an old family, but yeah, my major role models around me are all female. My first one being my grandmother. My granny died about 6 years ago now, and she was the matriarch of our family, as most grandmothers are, but she was just a special woman that really made me feel like I was special myself. She was a nurse. She lived in Melbourne as a psychiatric nurse, and she was born in the 1920s, so this was a fair few years ago. She died when she was almost 93 years old, and she set the precedent of you can do whatever you want in your life if you just stick to it, set your mind to it, and all women are just as equal as men. And I couldn't thank her enough for this confidence in us being female, and that our family and the other females in our family will be there to hold our hands throughout the way. So it was a huge loss when I lost my grandmother, but of course I had my mum and also her sister Heather, who became the role models that kind of slotted in when my grandmother passed away. My mum is a midwife, and my Heather, my auntie, is an ED nurse. She lives in Brisbane, so she has a huge ED department that she works out of, and as you can imagine, she sees it all. My mum being a midwife, she's obviously helping women to bring their precious cargo into the world, but she also has done many great things for the people in her community, other midwives, younger midwives coming into the community, helping mentor them. And she's just someone that I hear amazing things from in the community, as well as knowing that they're true because she's my mum. Mum quietly gets on with anything that she wants to. She achieves anything that she wants to, but without a hiss and a roar, and often gets missed because of it. And there's something to be said for that she just still carries on even without a cheer leader on the sideline. And so that's a reason that I am really passionate about this sort of sexual health, women's health, and helping fill that gap. I see a lot of young women that she has that struggle to find information. A lot of them don't even know what they're really going through once they're pregnant, and it's really a sad place and a scary place to be. And so I want them to be able to have resources that they can turn to if wanting to find out how to either deal with a pregnancy, how to stop a pregnancy, or how to gain information around sex and pregnancy in general, or contraception. The next tear down is my sister and my cousin Chelsea. My sister has had a lot of heartbreak in her life. She's had a lot of people use her. She's had a lot of men treat her like shit. And she's really not better for it. She's one of the strongest women I know, because she doesn't hate because of what's happened to her. She keeps love in her heart, and a lot of the time I haven't been able to do that in my life. And so Becca is another strong woman that I really look up to. And then Chelsea, my cousin, for her being the youngest female in our family, the heartbreak that girl's gone through is just not fair, and she still stands and is really strong and positive. And I see her struggle, and it's just so not fair. Having lost her brother, my cousin, a year and a half ago, who was her best friend, I just didn't even know how she would breathe. But she's just risen up and got on with it. And so that's another reason I want to really produce this. And then we have living in New Zealand. New Zealand is an awesome place where our country is run by an awesome woman and has been run by other awesome women that I really look up to. And we are definitely a progressive nation. We have been the first to vote for women. We've been the first to say, no, our pay gap needs to be closer. No, we need midwives. We need that parent leave. We need it on both sides, for men and for women. If the man wants to stay home after they have a baby, we've provided that. We're a very progressive country, but there's still so much that we need to work on, and sex education is one of them. I spoke to a lot of people whilst doing research and asked them about how they found sex education in their schools. Most laughed. Most laughed that it was so comical that we would even consider that was enough sex education in our schools that we grew up with. We all pretty much just got, this is a condom, this is how you put it on, here's a banana to try on, and these are the STDs if you don't wear this condom that you will get. That was about it. I know that my history teacher taught me, and for a history teacher that has no training in sexual health or wellness to sit us down and be the guy that gives us the information, it's so off. And so I do believe that there's a real gap, not only for sexual health education and wellness in New Zealand, but also for it to be accessible. There's a poverty gap in New Zealand that we really struggle with, and it's only getting bigger. And I really want to bring awareness to this, because I know that we didn't have enough money for tampons growing up, and pads and things like that. At school, heaps of myself and my friends had issues on getting contraception without having to pay, without having to tell parents, condoms costing a huge amount of money, and this all affects everybody when there is such a huge gap in New Zealand of poverty, and how that information or contraception or any kind of wellness or health thing, how it's accessed, and whether it's available to everybody. So obviously I'm talking to youth here, but I'm also talking about, if later on, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, there's still a poverty gap when people are getting to this age. So it needs to be accessible to everybody. There needs to be a free online tool. There needs to be free options for everything across the board in New Zealand. We are a progressive country. We have enough money to go around, and I just really want to become the person that drives this. So that's another reason I've started my channel. I hope to create such a platform that every link that could be available on the market out there is found in one place. So I want it to be a place where you can find tips on sex, contraception, STDs, family planning, pregnancy, endometriosis, depression, anxiety, OCD, any kind of wellness, health topic issue can be found here. Somewhere that you can find an information portal to go to help yourself. And hopefully that will end up as a hard copy from me as well. So I'm hoping to publish everything in hard copy as well, so that's accessible for those that may not have access to the internet or a device or something like that. So what will Sex Ed be? So each week I will talk about a topic that I think that is not really spoken about out online, or a topic that somebody has suggested or asked me to cover. So this will be obviously about sexual health, wellness, but also those things that come around it. So for example, consent will be our first topic next week. But often the issue with consent comes from a bigger problem like anxiety or depression or low self-esteem. And so I want to also talk about why these things are affecting a certain person or age group or demographic or individual that has had trauma, PTSD, anxiety. What has happened? What is the root cause of this problem that this person's having? So we will talk about everything in its own vlog. So yeah, our first one being consent, but we'll have a STD one. We will have a pregnancy one. We will have a support one. We will have an anxiety one. We will have all of those topics in this one place. It's all going to be here for you now, and I will always open up the questions or the comments or the messaging section so that you can hit me with any more questions, so that then we can evolve from that episode into a new episode, into a bigger one that's going to leave the person going, I know which direction to go in, and I know what my answers are now. I know what my options are now. And I want this to be an interactive place. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to talk about my experience, what I've had issues with, what have led me to hear a bit more, if that's what you want. And I've also going to have some guest speakers. So somebody that is going to be more sort of closer to a topic, I want to bounce off them. I want to get them in. We'll be doing interviews. We'll be talking to those people, and we'll be feeding off each other, essentially, and giving it all to you guys. And so, yeah, I know that our first episode's been a bit bitsy. I've been kind of bantering back and forth, but that's how I wanted my first episode to be. Everything from here on out, you will also be able to get it in a podcast form, and I will have that set up on Spotify. Obviously, you're on YouTube here, but you can access it also from my website. We will have a hard copy handout newsletter, which you can sign up for from my website, which will go with each of my episodes. So a little graph or a little bit of information, a little bit of stats on, or where to go to get this contraception, pregnancy help, that kind of thing from. That will be fed through the next day after the episode is released. Thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, I know that this has just been a blur of my all my thoughts coming out, and what I want this to be for you guys. But that's exactly how I wanted it to sound, and I'm so stoked to have finally released this. So I will see you guys all next Monday for episode 2. It's on consent, talking sex and consent, but also not just talking sex and consent. I'm talking letting somebody into your life and consent. People can drain you mentally, physically, all these different ways. So I'm talking consent overall. See you guys then.